What's going on, Sooner Nation? You guys know what time it is because we have a visitor list for this weekend for the Future Freaks weekend that Oklahoma is setting forth. And this weekend sounds familiar because Oklahoma had one last year, and you really felt like Oklahoma gained momentum on the recruiting trail, kind of coming out of the March recruiting weekends. In fact, that was a weekend where you got Jeremiah Newcomb. I think it was a week or maybe it was a week and a half later after that. So not saying if you're an Oklahoma fan, you should be expecting any sort of commitments or anything like that. But what you can expect is Oklahoma is going to probably solidify exactly who they want to go after in the 2025 class and potentially who they want to go after here in the 2026 and 2027 classes. They're going to start to narrow down those lists, throw out some more offers. It's going to be an exciting weekend. And before we dive into it, before we talk about it, I need to make sure I'm hearing from y'all. So make sure you join the discussion. Jump down in the comments below and give me your thoughts. And if you haven't already, make sure you hit that like and you hit the subscribe button. We're trying to get to 10,000 subscribers, and I'd love for you guys to come be a part of it. But when you look at, well, hold on, before we dive into the visitor weekend, because a lot of people had questions around what I was trying to say with Michael Fasusi and the Texas prediction. What I was trying to say is, yes, I still believe Oklahoma's the pick. Not denying that. I do think, though, they've lost some ground in that recruitment, but I think they'll make it back up when Fasusi gets on campus here in April. That's all I was saying. You land Ty Haywood. Not saying that prediction was bad. I'm just saying they're five-star offensive linemen, and I want everybody to kind of hold the brakes. Don't be giving your hopes up, right? There's still a lot of work for Bill Bedenbaugh, Seth Luttrell, and this recruiting staff to do. Now, let's go ahead and let's dive into the recruiting list this week. And there are a couple of prospects that I really want to highlight. A couple of them are here in 2027. One of them's here in 2026. But and we'll talk about those guys. And some of them are on the defensive line. One of them's on the offensive line. And like I said, I really want to hit those guys. But we'll start here with the 2025 guys that are going to be on campus. And I think it's pretty much expected. And I don't have this confirmed, but I think it's pretty much expected you should see Kevin Sperry at pretty much anytime Oklahoma's got some recruiting event going on. You're probably going to see Sperry there trying to help recruit and get guys on campus. Like Sperry, it seems like, has been all in on a lot of these recruiting visits. So I pretty much, on any of these visitor lists, I pretty much mark him down on there because I think it's pretty much expected. Now, the big one that you're watching this weekend is the four-star defensive lineman that Oklahoma recently threw out an offer to, and then when they threw out the offer, they were immediately in his top schools list, and that's going to be Trenton Wilson out of St. Francis Academy out of Upper Marlboro, Maryland, in Dr. Henry Wise High School. I think that's how you say it. I think he used to be at St. Francis. Anyways, 142 ranked player in the 247 composite rankings. He's a four-star. This is a guy that, if you're Oklahoma with a not very deep defensive line class that you could go out there and get, this almost feels like a must-get target, especially for how he talks about Oklahoma and the relationship that he has with Todd Bates. I mean, when you talk to the kid, it seems like Bates is doing a great job at keeping this relationship going on a daily basis and working on building it over some other schools that have been after his services, like the Georgias and the Bamas, the Florida States and the Auburns, right? You're going to have to go up against the most elite competition. But Trent Wilson is a prospect at 6'3", 270 pounds that you believe probably plays on the interior. And I think we're going to find out a lot after this weekend, whether or not Oklahoma is a serious contender. When you talk to him, it sounds like Oklahoma is a serious contender. But he's got to get on campus first. He's got to see what Oklahoma is all about. He's got to have that pitch. So Trent Wilson is probably the biggest prospect here in the 25 class that I'm watching to see, hey, what exactly happens there? You got the three-star safety, Omarion Robinson. You've got Garrison Utley, a defensive lineman. Jordan Davis. You've got, and I believe it's pronounced Felix Ojo. So you've got a couple of 2025 prospects, but this is not a recruiting weekend where you're focusing on them. You're focusing on the future, like the 2026 and the 2027 prospects. And one of the 2026 prospects that I think we really got to pay attention to this weekend is Drew Evers, a 4-star offensive tackle. And it sounds familiar because Drew Evers is the younger brother to Nick Evers. And he's been to Oklahoma 3 or 4 times now. Some of those were with Nick when Nick was being recruited to Oklahoma. And if you're Oklahoma, yes, you're going to have to go up against the SMU and the Texas. And I believe he's even been to Bama once. And being from the state of Texas, you imagine that those schools are going to be a solidified recruiter or solidified destinations in his recruitment. And you got Kyle Flood. Like, you're going up against one of the better offensive line coaches in the country. For Drew Evers, though, at 6'4", 282 pounds, I mean, okay size, but you like his athleticism. So I'm watching to see, okay, we lost Nick Evers in the transfer portal, and obviously I don't think Drew is going to play a lot of that into his recruitment. I think he's going to take, because he's an elite offensive lineman and he knows he's an elite offensive lineman. So I think he's going to do his due diligence in this process. My question is Oklahoma going to be able to gain an edge over the SMUs, the Texas of the world? I think this is a good weekend for Oklahoma to try to get out with a lead and to try to solidify themselves in this recruitment. I want to see how things go here, and I want to see where Oklahoma can go in the offensive line in 2026, because if they do what we expect them to in 2025, I would imagine they're only probably taking 2 or 3 offensive linemen, maybe 4, depending on how the transfer portal hits you in the offseason leading up to the 2026 recruiting class. But Drew Evers is one of those prospects that I think is probably at the top of the board for this staff in 2026, if I had to take a guess. Now, you've got your 4-star running back commit in 2026, Jonathan Hatton, going to be on campus. DeQuane Prevo, you've got Dutch Horisk, you've got Legend Bay, Nelson Peterson Jr., who is related to Adrian Peterson, Breck Kolojay, Riley Kester, who is an Oklahoma prospect on the offensive line as well. 2026 wide receiver Henry Harris, Chris Stewart at the wide receiver position, edge rusher Hudson Edwards, who a lot of people are really excited about. Hudson Edwards. We'll make a video on him later down the road, probably after his visit, so that we can kind of get some information on, hey, how did things go? Where's Oklahoma sit in this recruitment? Like, do you like them? We'll ask those kind of questions. You got athlete Daijon Gaines, safety Markel Ford, and then you got Ja'Cory Smith, right? So you've got all of these 2026 prospects on campus, but the prospects that I'm really watching is 2027. Because you got guys like offensive tackle Jordan Caraway and Peyton Miller and Demarius Johnson, all those guys on the offensive line. But you got 2 guys on the defensive line out of Denton Guyer that I really want to know, okay, like, are we in on them? What's our chances? Because with Xavier Ukponu, a 3-star defensive lineman, I think he's going to be 4-star here pretty soon, out of Denton Guyer here in the 2025 class that a lot of people are going after. He's got like 31 total offers. That was one early that Oklahoma was in, but it seems like Oklahoma's maybe backed off a little bit. With these 2 prospects, I'm really wondering, is Oklahoma going to be able to continue to be deep into this school with Denton Guyer? Because Kyron Haywood, he's only got 5 offers. But Zane Rowe, 23 offers. The likes of Georgia, Nebraska, Texas, and other SEC schools. 6'5", 220 pounds. Obviously, he has a little bit of weight that he can put on if he wants to play the interior, probably more so right now, an edge rusher. 23 tackles this past season, 4 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, 2 pass breakups. And then with Kyron Haywood, although he's got the 5 offers, they're decent offers. Like, they're Power 5 schools outside of North Texas. And then you've got 30 tackles for him, 5 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, and 1 pass breakup. The problem is they're really young, 2027. So they have a lot of time to get better. And I think if you're Oklahoma, you want to pretty well establish your relationship there. Also, be curious to see if Oklahoma throws out offers to both of these guys this week, tries to get in on these recruitments early, start to build those relationships. Because we know, especially for elite defensive linemen, it's what you have to do to be able to win them. Because especially if they're in that high 4-star to 5-star category, the most elite schools, they're pushing for them. And a lot of the time, they have sometimes 2, almost 3-year relationships with these kids. So something interesting to watch there. Those are the 2 prospects that I'm really watching in the 2027 class for Oklahoma. But you guys can find the entire list below, and we're going to add people and take people off as they come. I've been really busy with work, so I have not had a chance to contact a ton of people and find out exactly who's going to be there. So we might be lacking a couple people, but post-visit, we should have a little bit bigger of a list. Things should be slowing down for me a little bit. But I want to hear from y'all because we have people showing up on April 12th, April 20th, which is the spring game. We have some official visits in June. We're going to be breaking all of that down, talking about it, looking at the impact. I want to hear from y'all, though, and what you guys think. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that like and you hit the subscribe button. Hey, and YouTube wants you guys to watch one of these 2 videos, so make sure you guys tune in there as well.